Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive. This time we're exploring the world of Catena Zapata, a name that's pretty much synonymous with Argentinian Malbec, right?
Oh, absolutely. They've had such a huge impact on the wine world.
Yeah, we've got a ton of sources here covering everything from their family's history, their philosophy on making wine, and even tasting notes on some of their most iconic bottles. It's a lot to unpack, but I think it'll be fun.
I'm excited to dive in. It's amazing how their story is so intertwined with the evolution of Argentinian wine itself.
It really is. So imagine this. Late 19th century, Argentina. An Italian immigrant named Nicola Catena arrives with a dream to establish a vineyard.
It's a classic story, but what's interesting is that at that time, Argentina wasn't known for fine wine. Not at all.
Yeah, like Mendoza, where Nicola settled, was mostly known for bulk wine production, so it must have taken some serious foresight to see its potential for something more, right?
Oh, absolutely. It took real vision.
Well, he plants his first vines in 1902. He's basically betting on quality over quantity, while everyone else is focused on mass production. Talk about going against the grain.
He was a pioneer in a lot of ways. His gamble definitely paid off, setting the stage for future generations.
Okay, so now fast forward to the 1930s. His son, Domingo, takes over the winery.
And can you imagine, right in the middle of the Great Depression?
Talk about a trial by fire.
Mm.
But he doesn't just survive it. He actually modernizes the winery, brings in new technology, expands their vineyards. I mean, how do you even do that in such uncertain times?
Well, it shows incredible resilience, right? And it's not just the economic crisis. He's also dealing with phylloxera, that devastating vine disease that was wiping out vineyards all over the world.
Oh, right. I'd forgotten about that. What did he do about that?
He started using American rootstock, which is a technique borrowed from other wine regions that had already dealt with phylloxera. A very practical, innovative approach.
It seems like a recurring theme with the Catena family, this blend of tradition and innovation. It's fascinating.
It really is.
Okay, so now let's bring in the next generation. Nicolas Catena Zapata, Domingo's son. Now, this is where things get even more interesting, because he wasn't just a winemaker. He was an economist.
Talk about a unique perspective to bring to the family business.
Right. It makes you wonder how his background shaped his approach to winemaking.
Well, he was very inspired by Californian wines, which were starting to gain international recognition at the time.
Makes sense.
Yep.
California was kind of killing it on the world stage, right?
Exactly. And Nicholas saw the potential for Argentinian wines to reach that same level of acclaim. He really wanted to elevate the industry.
And that's where we really see Malbec come into its own, right?
Absolutely. Nicholas championed Malbec, seeing its potential as a flagship grape for Argentina.
So it wasn't enough for him to just run the winery. He wanted to revolutionize the whole industry. I love that ambition.
Oh yeah, he was a really game changer. He brought in other grape varieties like Cabernet Sauvignon and Chardonnay, invested in state-of-the-art technology.
And he also started using these advanced winemaking techniques, right? Like cold soaking and malolactic fermentation.
Exactly. Those weren't just random experiments. They were carefully chosen techniques to enhance the quality and the character of his wines.
So he's really focused on expressing the unique terroir of Mendoza, showcasing what it can do.
Absolutely. That was his driving force.
And speaking of terroir, this is where Nicholas makes a pretty bold move, literally. Most vineyards in Mendoza back then were in those lower-lying areas. But Nicholas had this radical idea. What if he planted vines at higher altitudes on the slopes of the Andes?
It was a risky move. I mean, everyone knew that higher elevations meant harsher conditions, but Nicholas saw it differently.
It was a gamble, for sure, but it paid off big time.
Yeah, he believed the unique climate up there, those super sunny days and cold nights, would yield grapes with incredible concentration and complexity.
And he was right. The Adriana Vineyard, located way up at 1,500 meters above sea level in the Goltellery district, became like his masterpiece.
It's a testament to his vision, really.
It's like, picture this. Nicholas, the economist turned winemaker, scaling the Andes, driven by this vision of what Argentinian wine could be.
It's kind of epic, right?
I know. And that lower atmospheric pressure up there, it actually makes the grapes work harder.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, it results in thicker grape skins, which means more color, more tannins, more flavor, everything you want in a truly exceptional wine.
I mean, the Adriana Vineyard is where that Catena Zapata magic really happens, when you say.
Definitely. And it's a testament to the fact that sometimes the best results come from challenging those old assumptions and trying something totally new.
It speaks to their pursuit of excellence, right?
Yeah.
Always innovating while staying true to their roots.
Absolutely. And the Adriana Vineyard, with its unique high-altitude terroir, is where some of their most iconic wines are born. Okay, so now that we've set the stage, I think it's time to dive into those legendary wines themselves. Let's start with their flagship, the Catena Zapata Malbec Argentino. It's a blend from two key regions, Agrelo and La Consulta, each lending their own special something to the final blend.
This wine really embodies the essence of Argentinian Malbec. It's got power and richness, but also elegance and balance. It's kind of a benchmark for the variety.
It's the one that put Argentinian Malbec on the map for a lot of people, wouldn't you say?
For sure. And not only is it delicious, but it can age for 10 to 15 years.
Wow, that's a long time. So let's say I'm swirling this Malbec in my glass. What am I getting on the nose?
First, you're hit with this amazing wave of ripe black fruits. Think plums, blackberries, maybe some black cherry.
Sounds amazing already.
But it's not just fruit. There's also a layer of spice underneath. You might pick up hints of pepper, clove, even a subtle floral touch of violet.
And on the palate, what makes it stand out?
It's full-bodied, but not heavy at all. You get those smooth, velvety tannins we talked about earlier, giving it structure and texture.
Ah, tannins. That backbone of the wine.
Right. And then you start to taste those savory notes like dark chocolate, tobacco. It just adds layers of complexity.
And the finish.
Oh, it's long and satisfying. It's a testament to the quality of the grapes in the winemaking. It all comes together beautifully.
Okay, so next we have the Catena Zapata Adriana Vineyard Fortuna Terry Malbec. Now, if the first Malbec is like a taste of Mendoza as a whole, this one is a journey to a very specific place, that high-altitude terroir we talked about.
Absolutely. The Fortuna Terry is all about elegance and complexity. It's reflecting those very specific conditions of the Adriana vineyard.
The flavors are so interesting. You get those fresh red fruits like cherry and raspberry, but then there's this fascinating minerality, almost like graphite.
That minerality is really a hallmark of those high-altitude wines. It comes from the unique soil up there, and it adds a layer of complexity you just won't find in lower-altitude wines.
And get this, a Fortuna Terry has even longer aging potential than the flagship Malbec. We're talking 15 to 20 years.
It's a collector's dream, a wine that just keeps evolving over time. It shows just how much potential Argentinian Malbec has to age and develop gracefully.
Now, let's switch gears a bit and talk about a blend that really pays tribute to Nicolas's innovative spirit. The Catena Zapata, Nicolas Catena Zapata. It's a Cabernet Sauvignon and Malbec blend inspired by those classic Bordeaux-style wines he admired.
It's a nod to those Bordeaux blends, but with a distinct Argentinian character.
Yeah.
It's really powerful, but still elegant, showcasing the best of both worlds, the structure of Cabernet Sauvignon and the richness of Malbec.
So they basically took the best of both worlds and created something totally unique.
Right.
What are some of the key aromas and flavors we should look out for here?
Well, you'll definitely find those classic Cabernet Sauvignon notes. Cassis, cedar, tobacco.
Classic.
And then the Malbec adds layers of dark plum, blackberry, and that hint of violet we talked about earlier. It's beautifully aromatic and complex.
And on the palate.
It's a full-bodied wine, so it's got some weight to it,
Yeah.
but with a nice, firm, tannic structure. Those black fruit flavors come through, along with tobacco, cedar, dark chocolate. It just coats your palate.
And that finish.
It's long, spicy. You might get hints of black pepper, maybe a touch of licorice. It makes you want to savor every sip.
It sounds incredible. Definitely a wine for a special occasion.
Oh,
And speaking of special, we can't forget about Catena Zapata's stunning Chardonnay, the white-boned Chardonnay from the Adriana vineyard. It's a reminder that you can make truly amazing white wines in a region known for its reds.
this Chardonnay is a real revelation. It defies expectations, offering a completely different expression of the grape than you might find in a cooler climate.
It's not your typical overly ripe Chardonnay, is it?
Not at all. It's got vibrancy and minerality.
Yep.
Think citrus fruits, hints of white flowers, and a really distinct mineral backbone.
And it's got a creamy texture, right?
Yeah, that comes from aging in oak barrels.
Yeah.
But it's not overdone. It's subtle and balanced, adding complexity without masking those beautiful fruit and mineral notes.
Okay, so we've got citrus, floral notes, a creamy texture, minerality. What kind of dishes would you pair with this Chardonnay? I mean, I'm imagining something bright and fresh.
The Chardonnay is pretty versatile because of its structure and complexity. It would be fantastic with seafood, grilled fish, scallops, shrimp. But it could also handle something richer, like roasted chicken or even pork tenderloin.
And for our vegetarian friends, what would you recommend?
Roasted vegetables, especially those with some sweetness, butternut squash, parsnips would be delicious. You could even try it with creamy cheeses like brie or camembert. The acidity in the wine cuts through the richness, creating a really harmonious pairing.
So many delicious possibilities. Now, before we get into tasting notes, let's bring in the fourth generation of this remarkable family. Laura Catena, Nicholas's daughter, has a fascinating story. She had a whole different career path ahead of her in medicine, but she chose to come back to the family business.
It's a real testament to the power of family legacy. She clearly felt drawn to contribute to something larger than herself, and she brought a whole new dimension to Catena Zapata, blending her scientific background with her passion for wine. It's an amazing combination.
And she's had such an impact. She's made sustainability and social responsibility a core part of the winery's identity. She's championing organic and biodynamic farming, focusing on water conservation, and even implementing programs to support the local community.
It's a holistic approach, recognizing that a winery's role goes beyond just making wine. It's about the well-being of the land, the people, and the community for generations to come.
It's inspiring to see how she's taken the reins and steered the winery towards a more sustainable and conscious future while still honoring her family's legacy.
Her leadership really ensures the continuation of that Catena family spirit. Pioneering, committed to quality, and deeply respectful of the Argentinian terroir.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground already, from the history of the family to their innovative winemaking practices and the unique characteristics of their wines. It's incredible how much they've achieved. But before we wrap up this first part of our deep dive,
We've still got to taste the wines, right?
exactly, we've talked about them, now it's time to really experience them. So in the next part of our deep dive, we'll be uncorking those bottles and getting into the nitty-gritty of their aromas, flavors, and how they pair with food. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back to our Catena Zapata deep dive. We've talked about their history, their revolutionary approach to winemaking, and now it's time for the best part. The wines themselves.
Yeah, let's get to the good stuff.
Right, because a great story is one thing, but ultimately it's all about what's in the glass.
Couldn't agree more, and Catena Zapata definitely delivers on that. Their wines are a true testament to their commitment to quality, that's for sure.
So let's revisit that Catena Zapata Malbec Argentino, their flagship wine that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
The one that really put Argentinian Malbec on the map. We talked about the aromas, but what else makes this wine so special?
You know, what's remarkable about this Malbec is its balance. You get that richness from those dark fruits, the plums, blackberries, black cherry, but they're not overly jammy or sweet, you know?
Yeah, it's not just a big fruit bomb. There's nuance.
Exactly. It's nuanced, elegant. And that's where those spice notes come in. The hints of black pepper, clove, maybe even a little anise, they just add this complexity and intrigue, make you want to keep coming back for more.
We talked about the velvety tannins, but for those who might not be super familiar with the term, how would you describe that? What does it actually feel like in your mouth?
Tannins are like the backbone of the wine, you know? They come
Mhm.
from the grape skins, the seeds, the stems, and they give the wine structure. They also play a role in how long a wine can age.
Right, right.
And when we talk about velvety tannins, it means they're smooth, they're well integrated, they're not harsh or astringent. It just gives the wine this silky, luxurious texture.
So it's not going to dry your mouth out like some of those really tannic wines can.
Exactly. And as this Malbec ages, those tannins are going to soften even more, adding complexity and depth. It's a wine that can evolve beautifully in the bottle over time.
Okay, so we've got the aromas, the tannins. Let's talk about the flavors. What makes this particular Malbec stand out on the palate?
Well, those dark fruit flavors that we talked about, they definitely carry through from the nose, but they're joined by these savory, almost earthy notes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you might taste hints of dark chocolate, tobacco, leather, even a touch of coffee. It's like a whole sensory journey.
I love that, a sensory journey. And it keeps going,
Me
right?
too.
It's not just about the initial taste.
Right. That finish lingers, often with a hint of spice or minerality. It really makes you savor it.
Now, what about food pairings? What kind of dishes would really shine with this Malbec? I feel like it needs something bold.
It definitely loves bold flavors. You can't go wrong with grilled meats, a juicy steak, some Argentinian asado, even lamb chops. You know, the richness of the wine, the tannins, they can handle those hearty flavors. They work together beautifully.
What about something a little less traditional? Any unexpected pairings that you love?
Oh, absolutely. You could even try it with roasted vegetables, especially ones with those earthy or smoky flavors like eggplant or mushrooms. And don't be afraid to try it with hard cheeses like an aged cheddar or a pecorino.
Okay, sounds amazing. Now let's head up to that high-altitude haven, the Adriana Vineyard, and talk about the Catena Zapata Adriana Vineyard Fortuna Terre Malbec. This one, if I remember correctly, is a bit more, well, elegant.
It is. The Fortuna Terre is all about elegance and finesse. It's really reflecting its unique origin, those extreme conditions where the vines have to struggle to survive.
Right, up in those high altitudes. So instead of those big, dark fruit notes, you're getting brighter, fresher aromas.
Yes, exactly.
We talked about red fruits like cherry and raspberry earlier, but are there any other nuances that might surprise people?
Well, think about pomegranate, red currant, even cranberry. There's a real vibrancy and juiciness to the fruit aromas. And then you also have those intriguing floral notes, violets, roses. It's like this delicate perfume.
And the minerality. We keep talking about these mineral notes in their wines. How would you describe them to someone who's never really encountered them before?
It's almost like you're capturing the essence of the earth in a glass. Imagine the scent of wet stones, graphite, or a freshly tilled field.
Wow, yeah. You could really taste the earth in these wines.
That's the magic of terroir, right?
Yeah.
And on the palate, the Fortuna Terre has a similar elegance. Those red fruit flavors are vibrant and fresh, but there's this amazing depth and complexity, too.
You mentioned contrasting flavors earlier. How does it all come together in the mouth?
You get this balance of juicy red fruits and those fine grained tannins. It's not as powerful as the flagship Malbec, but it has this incredible length and finesse. And that minerality is just woven throughout. It adds a savory dimension that lingers on the finish.
Now, we know this one ages beautifully,
Yeah.
even longer than the flagship Malbec. But can you drink it young, or does it really need that time?
Oh, you can definitely drink it young. It's a wine that can be enjoyed at different stages. In its youth, it's all vibrant and fresh with those red fruits and floral notes taking center stage. But as it ages, those secondary flavors start to emerge. Things like dried herbs, tobacco, leather. It just gets more complex.
Okay, so for those of us who aren't patient enough to wait, we can still enjoy it now. What kind of food would you pair with the Fortuna Terre? Something light and bright.
This wine loves later dishes. Things with bright acidity, think about grilled salmon, roasted chicken with herbs, even a pasta with a tomato-based sauce.
And any good vegetarian options.
Roasted vegetables would be fantastic, especially ones with those earthy or sweet notes. Beets, carrots, butternut squash. And don't be afraid to experiment with cheeses. A goat cheese, a feta. That acidity can cut through the richness and create a really nice pairing.
Now, before we move on to that impressive Bordeaux-style blend we talked about, let's take a quick detour to the White Bones Chardonnay. It's not every day you find a Chardonnay from Argentina that can rival those from Burgundy. It's really special.
It really is. This Chardonnay is a testament to the potential of high-altitude vineyards for white wines. It's everything you wouldn't expect from a warm climate Chardonnay.
Right, it's not that overly ripe or buttery style that some people associate with Chardonnay.
Not at all. It's got vibrancy, minerality, you name it.
So what sets it apart in terms of the aromas and flavors?
Well, you get this beautiful array of citrus fruits. Things like lemon zest, grapefruit, maybe even a touch of lime. But it's not just citrus. There's also this delicate floral layer. White flowers like jasmine or honeysuckle. It's really elegant.
And those mineral notes, we were just talking about them with the Malbec, are they similar in the Chardonnay?
They're definitely there, but they express themselves a little differently. Instead of those wet stones or graphite, it's more of a talky, almost saline minerality. It's a reminder of those limestone-rich soils. And it adds this real depth to the wine.
It's amazing how much the soil can come through in the final product, right? You can literally taste it.
Exactly. It's all connected. And on the palate, you get this wonderful combination of richness and freshness. The citrus fruit flavors are vibrant, but they're balanced by this really crisp acidity.
We talked about that creamy texture earlier. Where does that come from?
That comes from aging in oak barrels. But again, it's not overdone. It's subtle, integrated. It adds a layer of complexity without overpowering the fruit or those mineral characters.
Okay, so we've got those beautiful aromas, the creamy texture, the vibrant acidity. What kind of dishes would you pair with a White Bones Chardonnay? I'm feeling like it's got to be pretty versatile.
It is. It's got the structure and complexity to pair with a wide range of dishes. It would be fantastic with seafood, of course, grilled fish, scallops, shrimp. But it can also handle richer dishes like a roasted chicken or even a pork tenderloin.
And what about vegetarian pairings?
Roasted vegetables would be great, especially those with some sweetness, butternut squash, parsnips. And don't be afraid to try it with creamy cheeses like brie or camembert. That acidity in the wine can cut through the richness of the cheese and create a really harmonious pairing.
Now let's finally get to that Bordeaux-inspired blend, the Catena Zapata. It's such a testament to Nicola's vision his admiration for those classic French wines.
It really is. This blend is a powerful yet elegant expression of Cabernet Sauvignon and Malbec. It really does showcase the best of both worlds. The structure and complexity of the Cabernet, and then that richness and fruitiness of the Malbec.
We talked about those black fruit aromas earlier. What else can you tell us about what you experience on the nose?
Well, you definitely get those classic Cabernet Sauvignon notes, right? Things like blackcurrant, cassis, maybe even a touch of cedar or tobacco.
Yep, the classic.
And then the Malbec adds those layers of dark plum, blackberry, and often that little hint of violet that we talked about before. It's
Yeah.
just beautifully aromatic. And it evolves as you swirl it in the glass. You keep discovering new nuances.
What about those spice notes? We mentioned black pepper and licorice earlier, but are there any other surprises lurking in there?
You might also find some clove, allspice, maybe even a touch of vanilla from the oak aging. It's a really complex aroma profile.
And then on the palate, how do all those aromas translate into flavors?
Well, it's definitely a full-bodied wine, so it's got some weight to it, but it's got a firm tannic structure. And those black fruit flavors that we talked about, they really carry through from the nose. But then they're joined by notes of tobacco, cedar, dark chocolate. It's the kind of wine that just coats your palate.
And that finish.
Oh, it's long, it's spicy. You might get those lingering notes of black pepper, clove, even a touch of licorice. It's the kind of finish that just makes you want to close your eyes and savor every sip.
This is definitely a wine for a special occasion. Those moments when you really want to make an impression. What kind of food would you pair with the Nicolas Catena Zapata? Something equally bold.
You hit the nail on the head. This wine really demands those bold, flavorful dishes. Think about grilled steak, roasted lamb, maybe even some game meats like venison or wild boar. That structure and those tannins can stand up to those hearty flavors. It's a symphony in your mouth.
And any recommendations for our vegetarian listeners?
You could try some roasted portobello mushrooms, grilled eggplant, even a hearty lentil stew. And don't be afraid to pair it with aged cheeses like cheddar or Gouda. That complexity can really complement the richness of the cheese.
Okay, so we've really explored the aromas, the flavors, the food pairings for some of Catena Zapata's most iconic wines. It's incredible how each wine tells a story, isn't it?
It is. You can taste the terroir, the grape varieties, the winemaking philosophy. It's all right there in the glass.
And through it all, you see that thread of innovation, that dedication to pushing boundaries and crafting wines that really showcase the potential of Argentina.
Absolutely.
Now let's step back from the specific wines and talk about the bigger picture. Catena Zapata has really played a key role in shaping the Argentinian wine industry, haven't they?
Oh, for sure. Their story is completely intertwined with the rise of Argentinian Malbec on the world stage. They weren't just making wine, they were challenging perceptions, proving that Argentina could produce world-class wines.
And it wasn't just about Malbec. They introduced other grape varieties, experimented with those high-altitude vineyards, pioneered sustainable practices. Their influence has really been felt across the whole region.
They were always innovating, pushing the boundaries, weren't they? They weren't afraid to take risks, experiment, and they really shared their knowledge, which helped elevate the entire Argentinian wine industry.
They've really raised the bar for everyone. Now let's talk about Laura Catena and the future of the winery. She's brought a whole new dimension to the Catena Zapata legacy.
Her leadership has been truly transformative. She's building on the foundation that her family laid, but she's bringing her own unique vision and expertise. It's a beautiful blend of tradition and innovation, that's for sure.
We talked about her commitment to sustainability and social responsibility earlier, but how else is she shaping the future of the winery?
Well, she's still championing innovation, right? Exploring new techniques, experimenting with different grape varieties. She's also really passionate about sharing the story of Argentinian wine with the world. She's a true ambassador.
And she's doing it all while staying true to those core family values: quality, innovation, and respect for the land.
Exactly. It's an exciting time for Catena Zapata. With Laura at the helm, they're going to continue their legacy of excellence and inspire future generations of winemakers.
It's been an incredible journey exploring the world of Catena Zapata. From their humble beginnings to their global acclaim, they've truly left their mark on the world of wine.
Their story is pretty captivating.
But before we wrap up our deep dive, I think it's important to remember the human element, the people behind the wines.
Oh, absolutely.
We focused on the technical stuff, the history, the terroir, but ultimately, it's the people who make it all happen. It's their passion and dedication that shines through in every bottle.
Couldn't agree more.
So in the final part of our deep dive, we're going to delve into the lives and passions of the Catena family. We'll explore the impact they've had, not just on the wine industry, but on the community and culture of Argentina. It's going to be fascinating. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone. We've explored the vineyards, the wines, and now it's time to really focus on the heart and soul of Catena Zapata, the people.
Yeah, because their story goes way beyond just making great wine. It's woven into the very fabric of Argentina.
It really is. Right from the start, when Nicola Catena arrived from Italy back in the late 1800s, you see this drive, this desire to create something lasting, to build a future for his family in this new world.
And that sense of purpose, that commitment to something bigger than themselves. It's been passed down through each generation. Think about Domingo navigating the winery through the Great Depression. He could have just focused on surviving, but he chose to invest in the future.
It's true. He modernized, expanded. Talk about resilience.
It shows their character, doesn't it? And then you have Nicholas, this incredible mix of tradition and revolution. He could have just kept things as they were, but he was driven to elevate Argentinian wine to a world-class level.
He wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo experiment.
Yeah, like those high-altitude vineyards, everyone thought he was crazy.
But he had a vision, and he went for it.
He even went to California to learn from the best in the world.
He was always looking for ways to improve, to innovate.
And it wasn't just about his own success, it was about raising the bar for the entire Argentinian wine industry.
And then there's Laura. I mean, she had this whole other path in medicine, but she felt that pull to come back to the family business.
And she brought her own unique perspective, her own expertise. It's a beautiful blend of tradition and innovation, for sure.
Her commitment to sustainability, social responsibility,
Yeah.
it's inspiring.
It shows that she's not just focused on making great wine, but on making a positive impact, you know?
It's like they understand that a successful winery isn't just about profit. It's about taking care of the land, the people. It's about the community, the whole ecosystem.
That's what makes Catena Zapata so special. When you drink their wines, you're tasting generations of passion, dedication.
It's a taste of their history, their values, their commitment to excellence.
Mm-hmm.
It's more than just the liquid in the bottle.
Exactly. You're experiencing their story.
And what a story it is.
It's a story that should inspire us all, really. It shows that we all have the power to leave a legacy, to make a difference.
So the next time you open a bottle of Catena Zapata, take a moment to appreciate not just the wine itself, but the story behind it. The story of this incredible family who dared to dream big, to challenge the norms, and to create something truly exceptional.
Cheers to that.
Cheers. And to all of you listening, we hope this deep dive has given you a new appreciation for the world of Catena Zapata. Go explore their wines, discover their story, and experience the magic that happens when passion, innovation, and a deep connection to the land come together. Thanks for joining us.